Just preparing my... Is it rolling yet or not?
No, we're waiting for you.
I'm just waiting for you.
Please tell them about the question. I'm not answering anything. I don't want to be put off guard for camera. Yes, and I'm done with it. Yes.
Just a minute, I'm just sitting in the cameras.
Which item was to back? Which item are you wish to be declared? Which item is to be declared? You said there was item.
I think we're ready.
Okay, you can tell me when you're ready to
Yeah,
start.
we're ready. We can start now. We're starting.
Tell me when to go.
Let's go.
Welcome and thank you for taking the time to listen to my story and my son's story at the hands of Mr. Frank Buyanga Sediki. I do not wish to take up much of your time and to keep us gathered for long in these difficult times of the coronavirus, so I will just go straight to the point. On the 25th of March 2020, I took an unprecedented step and issued a statement explaining some of the salient points of the legal dispute between myself and Mr. Buyanga. I made that statement fully aware of the potential danger to myself and my child. By then, I had become aware that I was being followed and tracked unlawfully. I had reconciled myself with the idea of confronting the dangers of what you witnessed at Waterfalls Shopping Center. I am grateful to the many unknown heroes who witnessed that incident, driven by conscience, attempted to stop the abduction of my son. In response to my statement, Mr. Frank Buyanga Sediki, frustrated by his inability to capture and abuse the public offices under the Mnangagwa administration, assaulted myself, my mother, and kidnapped my son, his own son. In that incident, various crimes were committed, and I call upon the police, the Prosecutor General to fully investigate the incident. As traumatic and frustrating and frightening as the kidnapping was, I do not wish to dwell on it. I wish to state the facts important to my son's life story. The boy only turned 5 years old last August. His tender age requires the constant nurturing, love, care, and affection of his mother. What kind of a father hires thugs to kidnap his own child? How can that ever be in the best interest of a child? I have taken care of that boy since he was born, nurturing and protecting him. As with all mothers, there are days we sit up awake at night when his asthma is bad, and there are good days when he comes home excited from a birthday party at his friend's house. He is a normal boy. He wants a normal life. I have never denied Mr. Buyanga access to his son. I believed it was in his best interest to maintain an ongoing relationship with his father. I continue to hold on to the hope that Frank begins to consider the impact of his behavior on the child. I repeat that as of July 2019, he has been entitled to a generous access regime, alternate weekends, alternate public holidays, and half the school holiday. In March 2018, I had no lawyers when we entered into a consent agreement for the access arrangement. I did so based on the belief and conviction that it was good for my son. I continue to understand that Mr. Buyanga has a natural right to have a relationship with his son, just as I have with my own father. There is no question about that. Some journalists have asked me if I've ever claimed for maintenance from Frank. I have not. His financial obligations are restricted to the minor child's fees, medical aid, food, and clothes. I have not asked or demanded anything from him. Between last July and now, my lawyers have sent letters requesting settlement with his lawyers. As soon as draft settlement was reached with Rubaya and Chatambuza, Frank engaged Manasseh and Manasseh. More recently, we outlined our terms of settlement with Manasseh and Manasseh and had a possibility to reach an agreement. He switched again to Mtombeni, Mkwesha, and Mzawazi. Each time, these changes take us back to issues we think have been resolved. It is extremely difficult, but compromise between parents is a common feature of parenting everywhere. In the course of the 12 months that have followed the consent agreement, Frank sought 4 amendments to his own consent paper. I became worried at the erosion of my custody rights and his interference in basic decisions I made, such as which school should the child go to. I also became worried that at the Harare Civil Court, one magistrate, L. Mube, seemed to be deciding all matters involving Frank Buyanga. I began to get information from low-level courts officials pointing to corruption. I made a complaint against Mr. Nube to the Judicial Services Commission. It is well known that Frank claims that he has judges and police officers in his pocket. He also claims that some judges owe him money and they will not rule against him. At the High Court, I raised a complaint with the Judge President, and at least 6 of the cases between Frank and myself were repeatedly set down before one judge. I have asked that judge to be excused from deciding any more matters between us. On several occasions, honorable High Court judges recused themselves from hearing the matters between us. Mr. Buyanga has abused his access to senior public officials, asking for favors and routinely offers to take care of their personal expenses in exchange. Some of them have now come to realize that his requests are often unlawful and sometimes criminal, and have decided to do the right thing and refuse. He has raised various official complaints against those he cannot corrupt. It is a wonder how someone implicated in many criminal activities has never been summoned to any court of law. It is common cause that Mr. Buyanga once escaped from Zimbabwe and was sought after by Interpol. It is common cause that he only returned to Zimbabwe after Zimbabwe Republic Police was directed to ignore those crimes. More recently, he has made various allegations of association between myself and the first family, specifically that I have somehow gained the active involvement of the First Lady, Auxilia Mnangagwa, and her 2 sons, who he alleges I'm romantically involved with. I state here and now that I have never met the First Lady, despite my efforts. She has never been involved in the dispute between myself and Mr. Buyanga. I am not romantically involved with either gentleman, and most certainly not both of them. Mr. Buyanga is a habitual liar and survives by it. His attempts to hoodwink the public are born out of desperation that he has not been able to capture and abuse the first family. I extend my sincere apologies to the targeted members of the first family. I fully understand that they may not be able to respond publicly to these fallacies. Throughout the court proceedings, in typical misogynistic fashion, Mr. Buyanga and his cohorts have accused me of having romantic or improper relations with police officers, a magistrate, and my own lawyers. For the most part, that is his customary manner of intimidating people, ordinarily by name-dropping the names of political figures as his connections. More recently, I objected to having the 6th matter between us heard by the same judge who was repeatedly assigned to our case. Mr. Buyanga has made wild and unsubstantiated reports to the Judicial Services Commission against judges who refuse to accept his bribes. I have never met the First Lady, Auxilia Mnangagwa, even though I hope to. If I get such an opportunity, I would explain to her the anguish and helplessness of having my son taken away from me by thugs who believe themselves to be above the law and feeling that even the police cannot help me to take my son back. I would narrate to her the prolonged violations I've suffered at the hands of Mr. Buyanga and the officials he pays. In the course of the past 24 months, I have made complaints to various police stations, to the Anti-Corruption Commission, to the President's office over the conduct of Mr. Buyanga. I am hopeful that these investigations will be concluded. In some cases, he has not even been interviewed and statements were taken. In one of the cases reported to Borodale Police Station, investigating officer Constable Jonga sent the docket to the ex-area prosecutor for prosecution. Prosecutor Jonathan Rombezi declined to prosecute, stating that the wrong person had reported the crime. In the same breath, Frank has made a police report against him to have me release the child's passport to him. In his usual dishonest fashion, he does not tell the court or the police that the passport has expired. In case number HC 84488/19, in which he sought my arrest, I have offered my passport for inspection by the court, and I await a fair chance to be heard. We have all witnessed the incident at Waterfalls Shopping Center. It was brazen, indicative of the level of impunity Mr. Buyanga enjoys with protection of some corrupt government officials. In the 24 hours after the commission of the various crimes, Mr. Buyanga confirmed that he took the child and he has him in his custody. Waterfalls Police Station has still not located or brought back my son. I am aware that 1 or 2 police officers have attempted to interfere with investigations in favor of Mr. Buyanga and to intimidate me. Let them be warned that the law will descend on them too. I have never kidnapped my son at any stage. On the 11th of March 2020, I was escorted by the messenger of court to serve the order for sole custody on the school. When Frank's driver showed up, we went to Marlborough Police Station and the officer in charge asked to see the order for custody. We showed him and he dismissed us. Frank claims that I fled from the police station and it is false as usual, intended to cover up for his misdeeds. Lastly, to Mr. Buyanga and his associates, bring back my son to the safety of my care. To Mr. Buyanga's friends, lawyers and associates, please have a heart. Advise your client to do the right thing. Your own children are safe at home with their mothers. I will not rest until he's safely brought back to me. Two members of the public who have information on Frank Buyanga's whereabouts in the past 48 hours. Please contact Waterfalls Police Station on +242 665 395. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chantal. I don't think I have a check question. She's emotional. I don't think she'll be able to check questions. Thank you very much, guys.